Task 1 at the Sports Class World Championships consisted of 5 turn points and goal. I was 28th in the launch queue and found myself rigging in particularly a muddy and rocky spot, which was also on quite a slope behind takeoff. The start line was across the valley to between Taballone and Colonna and would require some height gain before attempting the crossing. It was a tricky task, which would see only 3 pilots make it to goal.
29.
My launch was okay, and I had about 30 minutes before the first start gate. The sky was very busy with gliders who had already taken off and were struggling to climb out, and became busier as the 20 gliders behind me in the queue were quickly in the air. The video shows some close quarters flying, but there were many closer passes while the camera was off. For the first few days of the comp, the meathead had to remind pilots not to be too aggressive in thermals, and towards the end of the comp this message seemed to have been taken on board by most competitors. I was glad to finally get to Cloud Base and make my way over to Taballone, though when I arrived it was just as busy. My mistake on this transit was to fly straight from Nudo to Taballone, arriving only just above the peak. I should have flown along the ridgeline, hopefully picking up more buoyant air and arriving higher. This might have helped me get back up to Cloud Base, where I would have had a great start. Instead, I languished around ridge top height and slowly lost height, moving down the spur from Taballone towards the valley. Over the week, I came to appreciate that sometimes the best lift was in the lee of ridges, so arriving above the top would have given me the option of searching both sides. I skipped the first start gate and continued searching for lift, but after the second start gate passed, I was too low to make it across to Colonna, and really needed to consider how much height I needed to make it out to the Maciano landing field at around 300 metres height. I decided on 750 to 800 metres, which in the end saw me above the landing field at around 550 metres. I could probably have stayed on the ridge to about 650 metres and still been comfortable landing, but I'm not sure there was any lift around at that point anyway. This was my second landing at Maciano, and the first ended with a broken upright, so I was feeling a bit of tension. The landing approach was great, arriving at the field in the gap between the trees. One glider was already on the ground and several were circling to land behind me. I kept a good speed in the glider and made a better effort at flare, though still not the aggressive flare I was wanting to make, and a few steps needed to run off the remaining speed. All good. Overall, I was quite pleased with the way I'd flown in the congested thermals, but arriving at Taballone at ridge height seemed to have cost me a decent day. Perhaps staying at Nudo until a minute or two before the start gate, then flying along the ridge straight past Taballone and immediately across the valley to Colonna would have seen me doing better in the task.